Well, guys, the title for tonight is Through the Night. All right? Through the night. And what we're talking about is we're talking about going through some things. All right? Now, night, we know this is the darkest part of the day, right? That's not some crazy wisdom. You guys are aware of it, okay? And night in and of itself, it's not a bad thing, right? Okay, night is a good thing. It gives everything a rest from the sun, reminds us to take a break. Nocturnal animals can come out and do their thing, right? Okay, so it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it doesn't take a genius to see that most bad things take place during the night, right? Reason being that it's dark outside, right? If it's night, it's dark. And darkness helps hide things. We have decreased vision in the night. And I preface all of that because sometimes when we go through in life, it feels like we're walking through darkness. Okay, whether the struggles that we're going through, obstacles we encounter, the hand that we got dealt, it can just feel like, man, I'm just going through a really dark time. All right? You know, some of us in here, when it comes to this school year, you might say, man, this has just been rough. All right, man, the last 9 months, you might even be in here and be like, this has been the worst year of my life, all right? Guys, I'll be honest, the last, 7 months has literally been the hardest year of my entire life, right? Because, you know, sometimes we just go through some really dark things. And being in the teen years like you guys are, it's not uncommon to be walking through some dark things. So if you're going through something, you're like, man, I'm really struggling, hey, you're not alone, I promise you that, all right? We all go through some things. Maybe you lost a good friend. Maybe you didn't make the team. Maybe your parents split. Maybe you went through a heart-wrenching breakup. Maybe your mental state has been unbearable. Maybe someone passed away. Maybe you just never feel happy, right? These are some things that we can encounter. And so today I want to talk about pushing through the darkness. Like, what are some things that we can do when we're going through a dark time? Okay, and so I want to start with Romans 12, verse 12. This is going to kind of be our key verse for today. It says, be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer. You guys know why we don't really mind the nighttime so much? Why we're okay when it gets dark outside? It's because we know that morning's coming, right? We know that change is coming. We know it's not going to be dark forever. It happens all the time. It gets dark, and then it gets light again. Daylight is coming. We have a confident hope and expectation that we won't be left in the dark forever. Well, if you guys are taking notes, I want you to put the first point is this. If you're walking through the dark, number one, be joyful in hope. Be joyful in hope. What does that mean? It means good things are coming. It means change is coming. Just like when it's dark, we know that morning is coming. Man, when you're going through a dark time, you need to have this hope that change is coming. You need to have this hope that it's not going to stay that way forever. So be joyful in hope. Find joy in the hope that things will turn around. Now, I know this, not easy to do, okay? I can tell you, hey, be joyful. Oh, no, it ain't easy. It takes some effort on your end. Honestly, when you're going through a dark time, it almost never feels like it's ever going to get better. When something bad happens to you, you're like, oh, I'm at the bottom of the bottom. This is never going to get better. Woe is me. It's awful, okay? But God is a big God. He has so many good things in place for each of us. And God knows how to change your situation. So I'm telling you, things are going to change. Y'all heard the phrase before, when it rains, it pours? Okay, it basically means if a bad thing happened to you, we'll get ready because more bad things may very well. It just seems like when one thing goes wrong, a bunch of things go wrong, all right? So people are like, oh, when it rains, it pours, man. It just means you're just taking hit after hit, okay? Sometimes it seems like that just keeps happening. And it probably feels like, if you're going through a dark time, it probably feels like, man, you're doing everything that you can just to keep your head above water, just trying to get a breath of air. I get it. I've been there. Maybe not the same situation as you, but I've had to find my way through the night. Guys, you won't find anywhere in the Bible where God promises you that you're not going to have trials. You're not going to go through hard times. You're not going to have troubles. You're not going to go through dark things. Never says that. Quite the contrary. He actually warns us that, hey, heads up, it's going to happen. All right? If you're not going through something right now, hey, at some point in your life, you're going to face something really challenging. You're going to have trials. You're going to have different things like that. For those of you that don't know, in November, me and Ashley, we lost our son. And guys, I'll just be honest with you, daily, we are still learning how to walk through that darkness. still trying to figure it out. And you guys might be like, well, you guys seem fine. You guys are cheery. You guys are like, doesn't look like anything's wrong. We're choosing to be joyful in the hope that we have. Okay, it doesn't mean that everything's happy-go-lucky, but we're choosing to be happy. We're choosing to be joyful because even though we're going through something very dark, we still have the choice to be joyful. We're choosing joy because we have a hope that we're going to see our son again, and a hope that God has more good things for us. And that's something that no matter what you're going through, you can have the hope that, hey, God's got good things for me. Even though I'm going through this right now, God's got good things for me. I know that we're going to make it. We know God, okay? He knows what we need. God knows how to help us. God knows how to get me through my dark times, and God knows how to get you through your dark times. He can guide you through any level of darkness. I promise you that. So first point, be joyful in hope. Number 2 is this. Remind yourself that you are not alone, okay? When you're going through a dark time, remind yourself repetitively that you are not alone. Deuteronomy 31:8, it says, don't be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord will personally go ahead of you. He will be with you. He will neither fail you nor abandon you. Matthew 28:20, this is Jesus talking. He said, teach these new disciples to obey all the commands I have given you. And be sure of this, I am with you when? Always, even to the end of the age. One thing about darkness, when you guys are going through a dark time, it can easily convince you that you're alone. When you're going through something dark, man, it's so like the enemy to just convince you, hey, you're the only one going through it. You're the only one who sees your pain. You're the only one that's struggling right now. You're by yourself. Nobody has your back. Nobody cares about you anymore. Yeah, that happened. Hey, you lost everything. He wants you to feel alone. Let me give you guys an example. Everybody close your eyes real quick. Everybody close your eyes. What you're seeing right now with your eyes closed, this is what it's like going through a dark time, okay? It can appear that you're the only one in this room. You don't see anybody else. If your eyes are closed, you guys don't see anybody else right now. And when you're going through that dark time, the enemy wants to convince you that nobody else sees or cares. That you're the only one going through it, and that there's nobody around you. You guys can open your eyes. Truth is, you're never alone. Never, ever, ever are you guys alone when you're going through something. Even that mopey voice that you hear where it's like, oh, I'm all by myself, nobody cares. Somebody cares. And he's right there with you going through the thick of it, okay? He's aware of what you're walking through, and he's wanting to help. Psalms 23, verse 4, it says, even when I walk through the darkest valley, I'll not be afraid, for you are close beside me. It says the darkest valley. When you're going through, may feel like the darkest of dark places. Some of you guys, you guys are going through it, all right? You think I don't know, but I know. Some of your guys' situations, some of your guys' stories, man, you're going through it. I get it. You can be in some really dark places, but I promise God doesn't abandon his kids, and he hasn't abandoned you. Now, when we're going through darkness, we often become desperate for light. What does that mean? It means you become desperate for any sign of hope. Man, when you're going through a dark time, you will reach out for anything that looks like a good thing, anything that looks like hope, anything that looks like it'll better your situation. I'll give you an example. If you would go through a breakup, so let's say I get broken up with, man, I'm immediately going to have a void. There's going to be something where I used to be getting love from somebody, used to be getting attention, admiration, and all this. And so when you're in that point, you get that feeling of, man, I'm never going to find somebody. Nobody's ever going to like me again. But then that person all of a sudden shows you attention. That girl at school, that guy at school that you know is not a good thing maybe. But you're like, oh, they're giving me attention. Maybe this is something. And because you so want to fill that void, we reach after that person and we bring them into our lives. Anything to fill that voice. We make rash decisions, poor actions, and poor results. Why? Because we don't see clearly in the dark. When you guys are going through dark things, it's really hard to see things clearly. Even things that aren't good for us can look really, really good if we're in a dark place. We don't see clearly. We may not see their poor character, their immoral living. It's hard to see when you're in the dark. And so my number 3 point is this. When you're going through a dark time, don't make big decisions in the dark. If you're going through some struggles, this is not the time to make some really rash decisions. Don't quit the team just because you're going through a hard time. Don't stop going to youth. Don't start dating so-and-so just because you want the attention. Don't make big life changes when you're sitting in a dark place. All of you guys heard that saying before. Your parents have probably said it. Nothing good happens after 10 p.m. A variation of it, maybe they said 9, maybe 11, maybe midnight. Nothing good happens after midnight. Well, what happens at midnight? What happens after 10? It gets dark out. You don't see clearly. We get tired. We don't think clearly. Guys, when we're in a dark place, when we're going through some dark things, we're not thinking clearly, and we're not seeing things clearly. Don't be making huge decisions when you're walking through a dark time. We miss things, we miss details, we miss specifics. Number 4 is this. You're going through a dark time. Don't stop praying. Do not stop praying. Romans 12:12, it's the verse we used before. Can you throw that back up there? Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer. In other words, consistent in prayer. In other words, continue in prayer. Prayer doesn't stop just because we're going through a hard time, all right? And yet somehow when we're going through hard times, God becomes the easiest person to blame. Anybody notice that? Like you're going through something bad happens to you, you're like, this is God's fault. For some reason, he's the easiest person to blame because I think we have this idea that God's like the puppet master and he's in control of everything. So if it happened, it must have happened because he made it happen. No. We're not puppets that he controls every move of. We're free. Other people are free to make decisions, to make choices. And yet we often find when we're in a dark place, we want to blame God. And if we're blaming God, it means we probably don't want to talk to God. And that means we're not continuing in prayer. The enemy will use absolutely anything to sever your prayer time with God. It's the one communication that he never wants to take place again. So if he can use the darkness that you're walking through to sever that, he will. Worship team, will you guys join me up on stage again? I'm going to start closing. We also find this when we're in a dark place. We reject help. The time when we need help the most, this is when we reject people. We don't want to talk to people. No, mom and dad, I don't want any help. We start pushing our friends away. We start pushing people who love on us away. We start pushing God away. All the people that are there to help us, we start rejecting. Why? I got to get through this on my own. Suddenly we become Mr. Tough Guy. I got to get through this by my own. Tactic of the enemy. He constantly wants to get you away from wisdom, away from people that can have good influence in your life, away from God. So when you're going through a tough time, don't stop praying. If you're mad at God, that's okay. Keep praying. If you don't feel like doing it, that's okay. Keep praying. It's the greatest line of communication you guys will ever have. If you guys want to look in the Bible at a story of somebody who went through a lot of struggles, some really crazy struggles, look at the story of Joseph. All right, it's in Genesis chapters 37 through 47. Joseph went through a lot of things, and God brought him out of every single one of them. If he's going to do it for Joseph, he's going to do it for you. So rather than pushing God away in those dark places, man, let's draw near to him because he's the very one who has the answer to get us out of it. When we're going through dark times, guys, 4 things. Be joyful in hope. Remind yourself that you're not alone. Don't make big decisions in the dark. And don't stop praying.